Okay, it says we're live. We're about 5 seconds in. I need a few of you guys to comment because I need to make sure that I need to make sure we got audio. So give it a few seconds, like I don't know, 10, 20 seconds. We'll see if some people show up, and then we'll talk a little bit about this. All right, do we have some people here? Looks like we got some people that came to hang out. Hey, you guys, can you do me a favor? Can a few of you guys comment real quick, just to make sure that you can hear me, because I'm wearing these sunglasses less because of how bright it is in here and more because I actually have a microphone in here. So I guess my question is it just as clear with me up by the camera? Can you guys hear me just as clearly back here? That's really what matters, because that's why I decided to put these on. All right, cool. All right, cool. Hey guys, I thought I'd take some time today. I'm here on a Sunday. You guys, I don't know if I've told you guys this, but I don't have any kids. My wife works in hospitals, and the truth is, I love machining. I just enjoy doing this. So even though it's my business, it's a passion, and there's really nowhere else I want to be right now, I guess, other than maybe the RC track running laps. I'm just checking. I've got buckets of coolant that are filling up. I wanted to talk to you guys today about. I thought we'd hang out and I'd talk to you a little bit about starting a machine shop. Yeah, thanks very much, man. This healthcare thing, it's funny because a lot of the population doesn't seem to really mind. Like they don't see it the way we see it. By the way, that's my Acewood scroll compressor firing up, so I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, or how good it is. I'll let it cycle before I get too deep into the rest of this. But I wanted to talk to you guys fundamentally about starting a machine shop and how we did it. I get a lot of questions about guys asking me about starting a machine shop, or am I a trained engineer, or am I a formally educated engineer? And I'm going to share my thoughts, and it might piss some people off, but that's okay. I don't mind. You know, if you're not pissing a few people off, you're probably not doing it right. Some of my closest friends, literally one of my closest buddies that I used to play Duck Duck Goose with in kindergarten, his name's Jason Welch. He's a classically educated mechanical engineer from University of Michigan. My wife actually has a degree in mechanical engineering from Michigan State before she abandoned that industry and decided to go into medicine. There's a lot of value. I have a bunch of close friends that are mechanical engineers, and there's a lot of value in doing that. My fundamental, here's my belief. I think it's always important when we have these conversations that I'll tell you what I believe, and I'll tell you why I believe it. I believe that academia it's powerful. There's a lot of purpose in it. However, a lot of the education, I don't know how to put this nicely. Most of the time, going to get a formal education teaches you how to work for somebody else. That's it. That's all there is to it. It's not very, very, very little of the exposure inside of the academic world really teaches you about real life, you know, just getting out there and hustling, knocking on doors, developing the social skills to communicate with people so that you can start your own business. And so I've had a bunch of people ask me, no, I am not a formally educated engineer, but I'm completely self-taught. And everything that you see me doing around here, I've learned. When I say self-taught, I didn't just like dream this. I just dream this stuff up. Everything that you guys see me do, I have either learned from reading books, watching YouTube videos, reading through forums. I've been tutored by other people. Like if I get into a jam, it's funny because your applications engineers. When you buy a new machine, you have access to applications engineers, and they're some of the most valuable assets that you could ever find. These, we are standing on their shoulders as far as like their experience and their know-how. And I'm going to show you guys some resources. Let me just shut this water off real quick. I didn't think this thing was going to fill up as fast as it is. I'm actually filling up my coolant bucket right now. I run it all through a fish DO filter, so it's all clean water. I don't ever run tap water into my tank. I'm kind of crazy about that, but I heard a super duper interesting comment by Elon Musk. He said, you know, anybody can learn anything given enough time, and that is profound. That is insanely profound. I got some water in my glasses. This is true. You know, we're given these lifespans. We don't know how long we're going to live. Okay. You know, my father passed away from lung cancer at 64, April 23rd, 2007. I'll never forget that day. Yet my grandfather lived to 98. You know, it's you don't know how much time you have, and so whenever you're getting into a business or something like that, accomplishing as much as you can, as fast as you can, is critical. It's paramount. That's just the way it is. And so more than a few people have asked me how I learned what I learned, how I've created, or how I've done whatever it is. And the truth is, the first thing I do is I go look for a resource. I look for a reference, and if I can't find one, then I just dream some crap up. That's it. I dream it up and I try it. It's that simple. It's like you throw enough mud against the wall, and whatever sticks, and that's that. So let me show you guys some of these books. I got some books right here, and all of these, if you're going to start a machine shop, there's so much crap that I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Zero. I didn't have a frigging clue what I was getting myself into when I decided to start a machine shop. And so I'm just going to try and give you guys kind of a transparent view. See, here's the thing that kills me. If you're watching somebody and they show you all their successes, but they show you none of their failures, or they don't tell you where they messed up, or they really don't show you the real risk that you're maybe not aware of, it's dishonest at best. You know, it's in that case what you're seeing is entertainment, but it's definitely not educational. So with that aside, let's talk about education. First of all, when it came to this machine right here, I watched every single Haas tip of the day video like 10 times. I literally knew how to run the control when the Super Mini Mill arrived. When that thing got here, I literally walked up to it and was like this. I had already done like the visual motor rehearsal thing like a billion times, so I knew exactly what to hit to set a work offset to jog the machine. I would say in less than a day, I was completely, or at least comfortably familiar with the control. So that's what I did before I got my machines. These reference guides, these things are super valuable. What I'll do is I'll pick a section and I'll read like a page a day from a section. So like if you're going to do job shops, when you don't know enough to walk away, sometimes a good thing. Yeah, we'll talk more about that. Having reference materials is critical. No one's going to read this. This book is like 2,000 or 3,000 pages. I'm sorry, 2,600, 2,800 pages. It looks like something like that. Very few people are going to read this cover to cover, including myself, but I will tell you that I will be reading sections of this through the years, one page at a time. So that was one of the first reference books. The other thing is, I knew I had to make molds, so the first thing I did is I subscribed to every publication that I could find. I just, anything I could expose myself to that would help me understand the lingo, understand the fundamental design, the manufacturing aspects. I'm like, my like obsessive nature won't allow me to stop. I just until I either understand it or can do it or have executed it, I can't let it go. I just can't do it. I was making these electrode holders and like I'm checking them with I'm checking everyone with the depth mic. I just want it to be right. I just want it to be right. That's all I can say. So industry publications, super helpful. Little things like this, like the little engineer's black book, a lot of like little trivial pieces of thread data and tensile strengths. There's a lot of having assets like this is nice. It's even better when you can download this kind of stuff to an iPad, and I'll tell you why. Because when you open it up on your phone or your iPad, you can search text. You don't have to start looking through the appendices or looking through specific segments of this thing. The dude that wrote this book is a mental giant compared to me. This book is amazing. The fundamentals of jigs and fixtures. If you're gonna run a CNC machine shop, whether you're doing milling or EDM work or whatever, your fixtures, they will define your products. There's make no mistake about it. If you are not on your game designing fixtures, a better fixture allows you to make a more accurate product faster. Period. Less wear on your cutters, better material removal rates. Just, oh man, I can't tell you. So super good book. I wouldn't say that I've read that cover to cover, but I've read chunks of that in many different ways. Early on, the two of the earliest books I ever got, by far, when I realized that these machines had probes, right? When I realized that these machines had probes, I knew that it was just basically like a fancy, I don't know, Heimer gauge. It was an edge finder, right? But if you only use that probe, if you only use this probe as if you only use this probe to set your work offsets, you are blowing out. There is so much capability in here, whether it's in-process gauging, quality control checks. Man, it's super powerful, but you got to know how to take advantage of that, and that's why this was one of my very first purchases. If you look at my Instagram, like I think I got my machine in 2018, July maybe-ish of 2018, and then I got this book here. I paid about $40 for it. I've read this book cover to cover a couple of times, and you can see that I still have a bookmarker in here, and I don't even know what's bookmarked at. These are laminated $2 bills my wife gets for me. Looks like I'm back here at the initial macro functions page. So there's an old saying, tell, show, do, practice, and review. Those are the 5 fundamental steps to learn something. I personally benefit greatly from repetition. The last book I'm going to show you, it wasn't important to me when I started the machine shop here because I was only making my own products. But over time, more and more people have started to ask me to do jobs. Sometimes it's something super simple. Lately, it's been some things that are very complicated and very expensive. And so because I'm not a classically trained engineer and I didn't take any classes on GD&T and all the stuff, I've watched as many videos as I can. I ended up buying this book. I bought it used. So Gagnon, whoever Gagnon was, Mr. Gagnon. I got one of your old used books, and I'm thankful to have it. So those are a few of the things that I think are super critical. I guess we'll call this first segment. We're 13 minutes in, and I feel like we're just getting started because now we've talked about education. It's just you've got to learn as much as you can. We haven't talked about software. We haven't talked about tooling. The next step is being able to execute on whatever it is that you're going to make. And so let me see if I can find something here. Whatever. I'll show you guys a couple of things here. So this is nothing. This is an electrode holder. Okay. This holds a piece of graphite that goes into a milling machine, and then it goes from a milling machine into the electrical discharge machine where it then burns a cavity. This isn't super critical. There's really 3 specific surfaces on this that are critical. This goes into a fixture. I don't know if you guys can see. It's right here. You guys probably can't see that too well, but this goes onto there, and basically it allows you to link datums. And so the cost of some of this stuff is unreal. And so the machine, everything is surprisingly one of the things you think that I would have learned faster, but didn't, I call it datum linking. I don't. Maybe that's a normal term, but I just made that up. Datum linking. You have to link these datums as accurately as you can. You have to chain them together through the operations. Well, when I bought all these chucks to make these parts, this is called System 3R. I didn't realize that you had to have a reference element. This right here is a System 3R reference element, and this is the analog to when you see one of those like long calibration gauges in your spindle or something to tram. You really shouldn't be doing anything until you've measured with your reference element. So there's this. This is super basic, right? This actually runs on 3+2. We just grab it, we deck it off, rip around the edges. I got these really tight corners in here that I can't reach. This is 375 thousandths deep. And so I actually finished this with an 1/8 inch end mill. And so since I can't get into those corners, I just dip down in there. Before I put the pocket in there, I dip down in there with a little 1/8 inch end mill. Just dip down in there, and then I rough this thing with tool number 5, which is one of these. I should have a 3 flute, but I don't. I just use this. It's a steel one. And then when it's all done, then I use tool 24. I'll show you guys this real quick. Then I use tool 24 to go in there and finally just breathe on those edges, clean everything up. I got a few different versions of this, but this is the one that I've been using lately. This is just an inexpensive Maritool ER11 collet holder with a cheap little 2 flute. And so the only thing that really matters on this is the floor inside, that height. That's absolutely critical. And then looking at it from here, you see there's a set screw on this top and then on this side. The locations of the surfaces that are opposite of the set screws are absolutely critical, right? So whenever you're working on something, it's the way I work on any project, whether it's a small one-piece component or a 300-part assembly, it's the same way you eat an elephant, dude. One bite at a time. That's it. One tool path, one end mill, one feature, one surface, one at a time. If you're working on something big, it can take some time. I'm going to show you guys something that's a little bit more, sophisticated, not tremendously. This is actually a vacuum. This is an aluminum mold for vacuum forming a wing for an RC car. My company makes products for the RC industry, which is, by the way, the race segment of the RC industry has been absolutely 100% devastated by this pandemic. I'm going to talk about all this stuff. The hobby, the actual awesome helmet of a hairdo. The hobby segment itself seems to be doing okay because there's a lot of guys that are doing a lot of other things, helicopters and planes and crawlers and boats and guys bashing around their backyard. But we are a race-oriented company. We sell products all over the world, Japan, Korea, Europe, all over. And I can just tell you that it's been absolutely devastated. And my heart, while we have suffered and struggled here at my company, I truly hope in my heart, I feel for all of those that aren't going to have the chance to recover from this. That really sucks. And there's no need to beat a dead horse. A part like this is relatively simple. Let me show you the fixture I made to make this real quick, because sometimes you can have fixtures that are relatively sophisticated, and sometimes they're just super basic. If I can find it. Here it is right here. So I'm just grabbing a couple of random fixtures for you guys. In fact, I'm going to grab all these, and I'm going to grab this. Knocking crap around. All right, so I got some fixtures, just some basic stuff. So the first and foremost, the main fixture that I tend to use is this. It's a 5th axis vise. This vise actually took a pretty bad hit. Please remind me why I chose Haas a little bit. Basically, the simple answer is it was the easiest machine to learn, and they had the biggest library of content that allowed me to have confidence so that I could get going when I got the machines. Basically, it was like you know, the biggest safety net. All right, fixture number one, just a cheap, it's a $1,000 vise. Just a 5-axis vise. This is a self-centering vise. You can flip the jaws around so that you can hold on to stuff. The kicker is that you need a dovetail cutter, and I don't remember exactly what number it is. Let me see if I can find it. Let me just take a look at the edge of the machine real quick. See if I can see it up there. All right, it's in pocket 7, so I'll show you that cutter real quick. I use this a really lot, for the 3+2 or 5-axis stuff. The kicker is you got to have this big bad Johnny. This is like a $500 or $600 cutter, and this cuts the dovetails in. So something like that, right? I don't know if you guys can see that. And so this particular part, I did op1 in a vise. There's a square chunk of aluminum. I made this simple little fixture. This fixture then goes into here. What I do, and this is just me, like I said, I'm not some pro. I put a hole in there, and so I can probe that hole or sweep that hole. By the way, I've got a few of these, and I can't tell you any more than that, but I got some shenanigans I'm working on that I think is pretty cool. This one is not threaded or tapped, but that's the only hint that I'll give you guys. But I got more of these. You put it in here. You can sweep this hole to get your datum, and then you can run bolts up to the edges to hold on to your part. And then you can go ahead and you can just do your good old-fashioned 3+2. And then you guys may have seen a while back, there's actually some video. If you haven't been over to my Instagram, it's just, I want to say Jason Snyder, SNYDER 01. Or you can come check me out on Facebook. I have a couple of Facebooks, but my personal one is full. But I do have like a regular page. After I cut that fixture, I can just bolt it in from the bottom, and then I can go ahead and do all my 3+2, my surfacing work, and then I can actually do a full simultaneous swarf. So if you go look on Instagram, there's actually like a picture of this thing actually, you know, kind of going around the machine like this. And I was doing some testing because we were going to actually cut some parts out using 5-axis machining. We were going to vacuum form the parts over there and then use 5-axis machining to cut them out nice and super crispy clean right here on this fixture. So there's that. This was an early fixture that I made to hold 5 little parts that look like fingers. They were little fingers. And this just went into, you see that this could actually be bolted down. So this was actually bolted down to another little surface plate. This, believe it or not, this is, I won't even tell you the story. Let me just tell you something. When you use one of these, this is designed to hold a specific, a round part. And if you better dial those speeds and feeds back when you don't have very good work holding, or you will spin your part, smoke your end mill, and make some noise. That's all I can tell you. This is another version. This actually has a couple of different pieces that go on the top here that hold parts. And this is just, I guess this is like a poor man or an idiot's dovetail. Instead of making a full dovetail fixture, I made this, and I bolt other fixtures onto it to stand it off the rotary. Because when you're getting here, when you get to the edge, it's one thing. But if you have to get down, if you're on the rotary like this, and your cutter's coming down, and you get here, sometimes you got to get here. And that's why you see that it's, I just roughed it out. I didn't even smooth that thing out. So so we've talked about, if you're going to start a machine shop, the first thing you got to do is you got to get educated. And if you're not going to work as an apprentice, you just got to use the internet. You got to read, and you got to be all in, 100% all in. All machining, all day, every day. Go to bed watching YouTube videos. At least this is what I did, right? I don't have any kids. My wife works a lot, so this is how I did it. Then what you got to do is you got to get out there and you just got to try stuff. You got to put stuff on the machine that you don't think you can cut or that you're not sure is going to work, and you got to walk it through the machine. This machine, every machine, it doesn't matter. This just happens to be my machine. I could care less. We use what we have. That's all there is to it. Use what you have. You pick a tool path, you run it, you program it in CAM, or you try to program it in CAM, and you get what you think looks good, and then you come over here, and this machine, you can slow the rapids down, but you can also slow the feed down. You can just keep hitting that -10 button until your feed's at 1% or 3% or 5% or whatever, and you can just You can just watch the whole thing run really, really slowly before you go ahead and before you let her eat. The other thing you can do is you can go into the tool table right here. Most tool tables, and I'm willing to bet, I'm pretty sure Mach 3 has it, and I have to believe that like PathPilot for Tormach has it. There are tool length offsets, tool wear offsets. All you have to do is program your part exactly the way you want it to run, then go add 2 inches to your tool length, and that part, instead of coming down and cutting it apart, it'll come down and it'll stay 2 inches off. And so that's all of my 5th axis stuff. When I first started doing that stuff, I always programmed it with 2 or 3 inches off the Z. That way, if there was something going on, I would... Sorry, this comment threw me off. That way, when I would see it come down, I had like some safety net. Your rapids are slow, your feed's slow, you have a gap. That way, if that thing starts going and that rotary turns in a direction that you don't think it's supposed to turn, like say it does a minus 90 or a minus 30 degree index on the C, and you thought it was going to do a plus 30 or whatever, if your post is wrong, we trust these computers, we trust that they're communicating accurately, but if they're not, they don't give a crap. That we pay the price. You will write the check for a bad post processor, not the computer. So keep that in mind. The last thing, I guess the last part of this is just the amount of crap you have to own, the tooling. And I know I've shown you guys a lot of this stuff before in the past. That's just one little itty bitty bit. Just, I can't, if there's one thing that blows me away about starting a CNC machine shop, it's that I have Jesus, man, just realizing it is so humbling to look back and realize how much I didn't know that I didn't know. I'm going to say that again. When I look back, I was just like a sheep walking out into like a pack of wolves, man. I had no idea. I had no idea. I was like, I had this like happy-go-lucky positive, I'm just going to use I'm going to use a Tormach with a couple of drills and a couple of end mills, and I'm going to make it happen. And whoa, now when I have planned a project and I think I've got it, when I think that I'm like, I've got it, I've covered every last detail, here's the reality. The reality is you're probably somewhere between 70 and 90% of the way there. When you think you've got it, when you've planned it and done it and you got it and you think you got it and the tool paths are done and the programming's done and you've ran the code through the sim, you're probably 90% of the way there. There's probably 10% that you haven't been able to see, no matter how good you are. And I think that time and experience makes you better at that. But that's something that only comes in time with experience. So the cost of the tooling, I've heard people say things like the cost of the tooling could be like half of the machine. If you're lucky, yeah, if you're lucky, maybe. If you're lucky, that might be true. If you're not lucky, okay, so I don't know. Let me grab a piece of metal and we'll talk about it. So this is a block of aluminum. How might you cut this, right? You cut this with a hacksaw. If you don't want to be too lazy, you just grab a hacksaw, clamp it down in a vise, assuming you own a vise, and you cut it. How do you cut something that's a little bit bigger? How do you cut something that's substantially bigger? Like this, okay? Every little step has to be accounted for, and that's something that I never understood. It's not until you find yourself in a position where you need something you don't have, and not only do you not have it, but you didn't realize you needed it. So you couldn't even plan for it. So, it's like it's the job where all of a sudden you wish you had V-blocks, but now you don't. So now you're going to have to wait a day for those. Or you break a tap because you got in a rush because it's only an M3 tap, and next time you buy yourself a cheap tap guide. For $10 that saves you from scrapping a part. And so the lessons that are learned are just absolutely unreal, you guys. Once you make parts, are you going to trust it? and you've learned how to program them, and you've learned how to take advantage of some of these higher level tools like the probing system, are you going to trust? Are you going to trust your part to this machine? It's the way these machines work is that when this probe fires, it records the machine position. So if the machine's accurate, then you're dialed. But if this machine records, say, let's just say that it measures, I don't know what this size is, but let's just say it measures this boss right here at 3 inches. If you measure inches, it's 110 degrees out. I promise you that tomorrow in the morning when it's 50 or 60, it's not measuring at 3 inches. And so if you've got a plus or a 5 minus tolerance, then it'll never matter. You just ship that part right out the door. The customer's never going to complain. However, if that customer asks you to go, -1 plus nothing, you could be bumming. You could be massively bumming. And so just all this little stuff adds up. I'm going to go ahead and take a few questions. I thought the one thing I wanted to show you guys is a little bit about metrology. And I just want to show you fundamentally where metrology started for me. And then we'll go 1 second here. I'm just going to grab this camera. I had this thing plugged in, so I'm going to grab this. You guys can just come with me real quick. This is a whole bunch of electrode holders I just made. So you guys can see those. Whole gang of those. Can you guys see that? Originally, what had happened was I just bought some cheap gauge blocks, and now, man, there's just so much crap that I'm not even going to get into this. We'll make this another video, but like I have a truckload of stuff for little new gauge blocks, bore gauges, stuff like that. So this, I'm going to go ahead so this behind me, I'm going to go ahead and flip this camera around real quick. Hold on. See if I can figure this out. All right, so this is how I started with metrology. I'm just going to leave this right here for you guys. Okay, so I should have brought a part with me. Sit tight. Let me just grab anything I can find. Okay, so here is a, you guys will laugh at this. This is some funny stuff. We got a couple parts. We've got a 1-inch diameter gauge pin, and we've got the first tool path that ever went bad on me. I was cutting some soft jaws. A guy that was actually working with me, long story short, was cutting some soft jaws and set the offset wrong. We were working together, and I was teaching him how to set offsets, and he chose the wrong surface. And so not only did we cut through our soft jaws, but we ripped through the solid jaw. But believe it or not, look at this cut. This is absolutely beautiful. That's a beautiful cut. It actually sounded great as it ripped through that cast iron or whatever that is. Okay, enough screwing around. This is really the core of where my metrology program started, and it is most of it's dirt cheap. So the first thing I ever did is I bought a cheap, crappy Harbor Freight. It's kind of like a knockoff of the Mitutoyo Quantum mic set. I bought a quality Starrett mic, and actually I have a set of these, and I'm 40. But sometimes I feel like I'm 80. I don't like, as much as technology is awesome, it sure has its downsides, and so batteries die and stuff goes sideways, and so it's really nice to have something that doesn't need a battery. So what I would do is I would take a surface, like say the surface of this right here, and what I would do is I would set up a set of gauge blocks that needed to be a certain height, right? And I would zero everything on just like so. I actually had a little gadget to make this a little bit easier. I must not have had that. Come on, Jay. Yeah, so what I would do is I would just zero my gauge blocks. I would stack up a bunch of gauge blocks, whatever they were. And then I would take my part and I would just sweep it under there to see what we had. You know what I mean? That's kind of sketchy. The end of that's not very flat, is it? But that's where I started. I started with just a cheap set of crappy Amazon gauge blocks that I think I paid 80 or 90 bucks for. Most of them today will still ring together, which is nice. I've tried to take pretty good care of them. They're all there except for one, which I use on the EDM machine as like a production tool. I bought this cheap little height gauge, which, believe it or not, this you guys can't see it. I'm going to lift this up. This is this thing was actually, it's still pretty accurate to this day. Get a gauge pin set and a few mics, and that's really where it all started for me. And it's funny because I see a lot of people that they think that they need the most expensive equipment in the world, and believe me, this is like any other industry, whether it's cameras or anything else. Having nice gear is just, it's fun. It's fun to have nice stuff. But as long as your stuff mics block, and we've got 150 thousandths and 50 millionths on this crappy Harbor Freight mic. And so what I do is, if I'm going to measure anything using this cheap mic, you see I leave it in this cheap stand. I verify it with something with a gauge block stack that's close to what I'm actually going to measure, because who knows if there's any variation in the screw on this thing. So that's it. That's where it started for me. This fundamentally is my basic metrology setup. In the summertime, if it's super hot, if it's super hot, I'll run the air and keep this around 70 to 72 degrees in this office. And if there's something that is super duper critical, what I'll do is I will leave the parts in here overnight to normalize, to check the temperature. That way everything's getting checked at 72 degrees. If in the wintertime, I'll do the opposite with the heat. And so that's pretty much the fundamentals of how that works. And that's it. I mean, it's not nearly as crazy as everybody kind of thinks that it is. You know, what I was kind of hoping to accomplish with this video was really just to show you guys that it can be done. It's not easy. It's surely not cheap, but it can be done. You can make products in America. You can start a business. You can do your own thing. But it's going to be a lot harder than you think. I'm plugging my phone in. It's probably going to be a lot. No, I don't have any thread gauges because we don't do anything super critical like that. This is all doable. You guys can do this. People think that it's undoable, and sadly, there are markets. I had a company reach out to me a couple of weeks ago that asked me to make some parts for them. They usually make them in China, and when they found out the prices that they're getting in China, you just can't compete with it, man. That's all there is to it. They're just little aluminum parts that just couldn't be done. You know, they're talking about making these parts in China for, I don't know, $6-8, like fully machined, anodized. We couldn't touch that part short of $25. Even if I filled the table with fixturing to run this thing like as automated as possible, it just isn't going to happen. It just doesn't make sense. And so it's tough, man. Our political leaders, I think that these monstrous corporations have lobbied, and they've put these political leaders in place that have made it easy to outsource. And now we're kind of in this, me and my little shop that you guys just saw, I'm competing on a global playing field against nations that have labor laws that are basically non-existent in a lot of cases. There's no minimum wage. They don't care about the environment. When their coolant's bad, they dump it in the street or the sewer. It doesn't matter. And so it's kind of like, in a lot of cases, depending on the market you're in, it's like walking into a street fight with, you know, hopping on one foot with your left hand tied behind your back or your right hand tied behind your back. It's nearly impossible to win, because this is all of us. This isn't just, this is not me pointing fingers, but we, as human nature, we want the most for our money. We want the most value you can possibly get, whether you're buying tennis shoes or candy or flowers for your wife. You want good value. And when we measure value with money. And sadly, it's probably not the right way to measure value. And the reason I say that is because you can buy all this cheap stuff that comes in from Asia, which we've all done and still do, right? I'm not trying to sit on no high horse or anything like that. That's not who I am. But you buy that stuff, and why you get the cheap t-shirt or glasses or whatever, there's a price that is paid inside your internal local economy for that. And so, yeah, I don't know. This video, I just wanted to share a little bit of behind the scenes. People always ask about this, and let's talk lastly. The last thing I want to talk about because I think I want to reward every single one of you. I see there's 118 people watching. I want to reward the guys that have stuck around here and listened to me rant and rave and have contributed to my, I don't know, I just make these videos because I enjoy it. I don't make a ton of money. Let's talk about how to get business and make money, period. That's all there is to it. Someone says if we don't buy Chinese products, then they won't make them. Yeah, well, here's the thing. That's never going to happen because in a truly open, competitive market, there's always going to be some guy that you're making this for 36 bucks, and he realizes that he can buy them out of China for 18, and so he buys them and sells them for 20 because he doesn't care, because he's not paying his bills with this money. This is just side money so that he can go to the bar and hang out with his buddies. And so it's a challenge. These are real challenges. But anyways, I digress. Let's talk about making money and getting business. So if you have a machine, I don't care what you have. I don't care if you have a Tormach. I don't care if you have a little converted Harbor Freight, little miniature like desktop mill. I don't care what you have. There are jobs out there that are worth it to do for you. That's all there is to it. The issue is you have to find these people, or you have to make it easy for them to find you. Simple as that. All right? It's always better to under-promise and over-deliver, not to over-promise and under-deliver. We all know that. When you're done watching this video, shut this video off and go look at Edge Precision, and it's called My Thoughts. Not the new one. There's an old one like 2 years ago, and Peter breaks it down like as an old school, just gangster of a machinist. He's like, look, make a deal, stick to the deal. Don't go back and ask for more time. Definitely don't go back and ask for more money. Right now, the best way to help somebody or to prove to them that you can help them is to help them. If they need a part made, make the part. Show them the part. If two guys walked in here right now and they wanted a machinist job from me, and one of them said, look, I want 70 grand a year, or I'm not touching that machine, and the other one said, I'll tell you what, I'll work for 2 weeks for free to prove to you what I'm worth. And then if we agree that I'm worth 70 grand, then pay me 70 grand. Who am I going to hire? I'm going to hire the guy that actually helped me to prove that he can help me. And so whether it's Craigslist, put a picture of the parts that you make and that you're proud of, whether it's a tight tolerance or a sophisticated design or a unique material, you can put pictures of those parts on Craigslist, on the Facebook Marketplace, good old-fashioned Facebook post. You can put them. You can run ads. You can do simple little YouTube videos. Whatever it takes. The real fundamental difference in getting a job. Peter just did a video on quoting jobs. Let me tell you something that I've done a few times. A few different times I've told people that they could send me their part with the price they're willing to pay, and I'll just give them a yes or a no. And I swiped this idea from Peter, the way he does business with Centerline, but it takes the quoting out of the deal, right? It's like there's no negotiating, there's no haggling. They come to you, they give you the price they're willing to pay, and you just say yes or no. And I just tell people, like, look, this is a one-time yes or no deal. If you really need the jobs, then you do what you got to do. If you want to negotiate, you can. One of the things that absolutely kills me is that I really believe in my heart that a lot of us have been brainwashed in a lot of ways. And let me just give you an example. Right now, this machine, the spindles aren't spinning. I've actually got them shut off for this video. But let's just say that fundamentally they're not working, or that I don't have any work for them. Is $30 an hour better than no dollars? We have this mentality about dollars per hour. And I don't like it. And I don't like it at all. And I also don't like the fact that attorneys want to negotiate in percentages. That kind of stuff pisses me off. I don't pay my bills with dollars per hour, and I surely don't pay it with a percentage. I pay it with pure dollars, just money, just straight up money. That's all there is to it. And so I respect the guys that say, we don't want to devalue our shop by taking these lower end jobs or whatever. But you say that, and then the buyer goes to China or to the guy down the street and he takes the job. And so all I can tell you is that stop worrying about dollars per hour. And I sure hope you're not worrying about percentages if the job makes money, it makes sense. If it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. It's that simple. That's it. That's it. There's no rocket science to it. And so post some ads on Craigslist, post some ads on Facebook. You can literally pay so that when you see videos on or pictures on Facebook that say sponsored, that is someone that's paying to put that in front of you, and you can define your audience. I'm not trying to give you guys a crash course on marketing, but if you're making, I don't know, gadgets for, I don't know, medical devices, or maybe you're making turbo propellers, or maybe a special air duct for a Subaru 2010 Subaru WRX. It doesn't matter. Take an awesome picture of that thing, maybe a little bit of footage of you making it, and then do a posted ad on Facebook that with your phone number or with your website or whatever. It puts, you can, by the way, you can say, listen, I only want people that like the Subaru page to see this ad. So you can narrow your audience to where only people are really going to be exposed to your content. That way you're not wasting money advertising to people that don't need your stuff. So there's a spot for everybody. Before I leave you guys, I want to talk about scarcity, and I want to talk about how it's used. And I hate to be dramatic, but I would argue it's almost weaponized. And I hate saying crap like that because it sounds all conspiracy related. But in marketing, people manufacture scarcity by saying things like, oh, the first 10 callers, or this offer will only last for, you know, X amount of time, or whatever. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. The rule number one is that there's a good chance that the money that's green in your pocket today will be green tomorrow. So if they want to run scarcity tactics on you, I'm out the door. Number one. Number two, value. Everybody seems to think that there's a pie and that there's only enough pie for a few people, and that is bullshit. I'm telling you, it's bullshit. I don't want to swear too much on YouTube, but the whole scarcity, the pie is only a certain size, is complete and utter bullshit. And let me give you two examples. Number one, there's a piece of land. We go buy a piece of land for $100,000. It costs us $150,000 to pay someone to build a structure on it, so we've got $250,000 into this whole package. Yet we put the house in the market and it sells for $350 or $400. Where did that extra $100,000 come from? Or the $150,000? Where did it come from? Was it manufactured out of thin air? Was it because of the home's value kind of like seeped off into it? Value is directly related to a psychological condition I would call desire. The more you want something, the more valuable it becomes. I don't even really like, I don't know, peas. I don't eat peas, all right? But let me tell you something. If I went into the supermarket and the only thing on that shelf is one can of peas, I'm going to fight for that can of peas because I want it, because it's food, right? And so the pie is infinitely large. It's just your ability to create desire in the minds of the people that need your products or can benefit from your products and your services. And yeah, that just absolutely kills me. And let me give you one other example. Let's just say, hypothetically, let's just say that you race these oval cars, so the late models, whatever, you know, these big cars. A lot of guys race those cars. That's all good. Let's just say that you've driven 1,000 miles with your car on a trailer, and you've paid for a hotel room, and you paid your $100 entry fees and all this, and you find out that some guy's got a magic tire, or I don't know, a magic fin for the back of his car that's legal, and you could buy it for $300. Now you don't need them because you win at home all the time. You're already $2,000 or $3,000 into this trip. Are you going to hurt your chances of winning by not spending a couple $100? No, you're going to spend a couple $100. You're going to buy the wing, buy the tire, buy the gadget, whatever, to put you in contention because you desire to win, and that product is a good value for you at the time. And so don't get suckered into thinking that there's only enough to go around for a few people. That's bullshit, man. There's plenty of value out there. If you're willing to create the right product or provide the right service, and you're willing to do it at a fair price, people are willing to buy it. That is that, man. So we are 49 minutes and 30 seconds into how I started, or a few tips. I guess I didn't exactly stay on the topic, but the gist is this. I did business in China because I own a company that is in the hobby industry. They burned me super bad. It pissed me off, so I bought a Tormach. Tormach burned me, so I bought a Haas. I bought the Haas because it was the lowest common denominator. It was the cheapest machine that I thought could do the job, that had tech support, applications engineers, and the main reason I bought it is because it had a huge library of content that allowed me to learn how to use the machine before I actually even received it. And while I've had a hell of a ride, some of you guys know that my first VF2 crashed and smashed itself, and it's been replaced, and I've had the Super Mini Mill. I've been on a hell of a ride with Haas, but I will tell you this: I probably would do it again. I don't think I would do it differently. It is what it is. You know, none of these machine tools are perfect. You go look through the forums. You know, I've had looked at Doosan's and Akumas and all these other machines. None of these machine tools are perfect. There is a horror story from somebody for every machine. And so it's ultimately, for me, I think it may be more important that who you buy the machine tool from than which machine tool you buy. You know, think about that for a minute. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. This has been a super long video. I'm going to leave this one up for you guys. I don't always leave these up because I like to encourage guys to come hang out and watch and interact. What I will do on the next one, I'm going to read through all the comments on this one, and then on the next one, I will print out a bunch of these comments, and we will answer a bunch of those. Thanks for watching. See you guys later. Bye-bye.